Hey there, we're going to check out the learning target. I can simplify radical expressions by rationalizing the denominator. So what you need to know, we want to figure out how we can rationalize the denominator. And what that means is when we have a square root that's not a perfect square in the denominator, that means we have an irrational number in the denominator. And we don't like that to happen. So in order to eliminate that square root or to make it a ratio, a rational number on the denominator, we first multiply the numerator and the denominator by a radical that will get rid of the radical in the denominator. Another way of looking at it is whatever square root you have in the denominator, that's what we're going to multiply by. And we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by that square root. In the second step, we're going to make sure that all of those radicals are simplified. And then in the third step, we're going to simplify the fraction if it's needed. Let's take a look at an example. So here I have 4 times the square root of 4 all over the square root of 3. So the first one we want to do is multiply top and bottom by the radical that is currently making this denominator irrational. And that's the square root of 3. So we multiply top and bottom by that square root of 3. When I simplify that, I'm going to end up with 4 times the square root of 12, because 4 times 3 is 12. That's going to stay inside the square root, all over 3. And the reason it's 3, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, and the square root of 9 is just 3. Another way of looking at it is anytime you multiply the same square root by itself, so you could have the square root of 21 times the square root of 21, the answer is just whatever number is inside, okay, every time. Now, you can see here we've done that first step. We multiplied the top and the bottom by the radical that we need to get rid of. The next step here in red is to make sure that all radicals are simplified. So my radical is the square root of 12. So can I break that down? That's another way of thinking about it. So factors of 12 would be 3 and 4. You could use 2 and 6. 3 is a prime number, so it's just going to stay, but 4 can be broken down even further into 2 and 2. So I have that pair of 2's that's going to get to come out front, and I'm left behind with a 3. So when I go ahead and simplify that one step further, you can see now that pair of 2's here that I have in purple, I've included here. I'm just breaking down that 12, and I'm left over with that 3. So he's going to stay inside the house. So I've replaced the square root of 12 with 2 square root of 3, because that's what that is in simplified form. Now we're going to go ahead and simplify again. I know that 4 times 2, those numbers out front, those coefficients, is 8. So I have 8 square root of 3 over 3. My third step is to simplify the fraction if needed. Well, 8 over 3 cannot be simplified any further, so we are done. Now would be a great time for you to pause and then try this one on your own. Come back and check your work. We're going to start with that step 1 again. We want to look at our denominator. This time I have the square root of 10, so I need to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 10. When I do this and I multiply across, I end up with 4 times the square root of 60 over 10. Second step, make sure all radicals are simplified. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that square root of 60 and break it down. 60 can be broken down into 6 and 10. You could have used other factors. You could have used 2 and 30, 5 and 12. I'm using 6 and 10. 6 can be broken down into 2 and 3. Those are both prime numbers now. I can't go any further. And then 10 can be broken down into 2 and 5. I'm looking for factor pairs that match, and I have a factor pair of 2, and then 3 and 5 are both prime numbers. They're going to stay inside the house. So I'm going to bring out that 2, and then I've got the 3 and the 5 left over, and we're really multiplying those. Okay, so when I multiply those, that's where I'm getting that 15 from that's left behind. So the square root of 60 is the same thing as 2 square root of 15 once it's broken down. When I go to simplify this, I've got those 2 numbers out front, 4 times 2, that gives me 8. 8 square root of 15 all over 10. Well, my last step is to make sure that my fraction is simplified, and 8 over 10 can be simplified. They're both have factors of 2 that I can take out, so 4 over 5 is going to be my simplified fraction. 4 times the square root of 15 all over 5 is my final answer. If you want some more information on this topic, you can check out the Learning Target spreadsheet for additional resources, videos, and practice.